Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan with your Hollywoke hot take. Before we get into the new Oscar rules, and you know I had to do a thing on that, I gotta just mention this quick little story. Comic book writer's son arrested in BLM rampage in NYC. Elliot Rucka, son of Greg, was arrested. Apparently, he lives in Portland, and then he was in NYC rioting. I guess he was visiting his dad. I don't know. I've met Rucka a couple of times at comic book conventions. Nice enough guy. I knew he was kind of political, but it makes sense that his son would be. It's just a shame. It's a shame. I'm not sure. He was caught up with 8 people who went on a rampage that caused $100,000 in damage. That sounds like the same rampage that 20-year-old college student was caught up in, the one with the rich parents that I talked about the other day. So I'm wondering if that's the same crew. But hey, he's in a lot of trouble. It's a shame. It's a shame. Greg, if you're listening, get your kid out of there. Get him out of Antifa. Get him out of BLM. Get him deprogrammed. Just get him out of this, life. Because, you can see the end result here. It's not going to get any better. Oscars unveil new diversity and inclusion rules for Best Picture nominations. And I immediately tweeted, the Oscars just committed suicide and you thought the ratings were low this year. R.I.P. Oscars. They're done. The Oscars are absolutely done. This is, nail in the coffin at this point. Now, apparently these rules are going to be slowly rolled in and then actually enforced in 2024. My prediction, they'll abandon these rules before then or come up with a reason to not completely put them in for whatever reason. Maybe they'll get sued. Maybe they'll just roll it back. But I got to read you some of this. It's nuts. All right, so this is for Best Picture. Standard A, on-screen representation, themes, and narratives. Oh yeah, they're serious. To achieve Standard A, the film must meet one of the following criteria. At least one of the lead actors or significant supporting actors is from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. Now, they're determining which racial or ethnic groups are underrepresented. Underrepresented. And they include, according to them, Asian, Hispanic/Latinx, Black/African American, Indigenous/Native American/Alaskan Native, which doesn't make any sense to me because if you're talking about indigenous people, wouldn't the Alaskan Natives be included in that? And if you're born in Alaska, aren't you technically an Alaskan Native? Middle Eastern/North African, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, other underrepresented race or ethnicity, which I guess could be anybody. New Zealand, maybe the Kiwis, there's all sorts of groups they've left off this list, but you could hear how Orwellian it sounds. Like there's no way they can manage this. There's going to be all sorts of problems. There's going to be actors who are one or two of these ethnicities but won't even look it. And there's going to be hirings based on race rather than talent, which is just dumb. There's just so many problems with this. But these woke tards are going down with the ship. A2, general ensemble cast. At least 30% of all actors in secondary and more minor roles are from at least two of the following underrepresented groups. Women. How are women underrepresented in Hollywood? There's always a woman in these movies. Always. You never not have a love story. There's almost always a love story in 99% of the movies. No women. Like there's no women. Racial or ethnic group, which is redundant. LGBTQ, people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who are deaf and hard of hearing. Now, why would you make that distinction? People with cognitive, okay, or physical disabilities, right. That would be anybody with physical disabilities. People who are deaf have a physical disability, just like blind people. And now, if you're telling me, oh no, that's not a physical disability being deaf, well, then blind people aren't a physical disability. So then you left off blind people. What about people who can't taste or smell? What happens to that? They don't get represented? This is the dumbest thing Hollywood has ever done. A3, and yes, they're going here, main story and subject matter. The main storyline, theme, or narrative of the film is centered on an underrepresented group. Well, that eliminates like 75% of movies that have won the Oscar. How are you going to do The Godfather and Godfather 2? You know, The Godfather 2, a lot of it, takes place during a time when Italians were an underrepresented group, where they were marginalized, where we were considered second-class citizens or whatever. They would put up signs that said, no Italians, or no, we're not hiring Italians or whatever. You go back farther, same thing happened to the Irish. So you're not going to do those stories now? Oh, we can't. Oh, those people are not in the underrepresented group in the modern day. This is insane. This is insanity. This is financial suicide. How long before they reverse this whole thing? I'm going to say they're not even going to. This is supposed to start in 2024. I predict they'll undo it before then somehow. They'll fire a bunch of people, and then someone will come in and go, nah, we're not doing any of that. Quietly. They'll do it quietly, and then, you know, it'll just be, they'll have to revamp the entire Oscars to go back to some sort of normalcy. By that point, nobody will be watching it, of course, because even just a wind up to this is going to be, I mean, they've already started, right? So they give Parasite the best foreign picture, and then they give it to best picture. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Either it's a foreign picture in a separate category, or the Oscars are international. If they're international, well, then you got to consider every movie that comes out on the planet. If that's the case. You don't just consider the ones, well, that happen to make it to America. That seems unfair, doesn't it? But, okay. To a standard B, to achieve standard B, the film must be one of the criteria below. Now, this is the creative leadership and department heads. So director, writer, editor, but it also includes hairstylist, makeup artist, producer, production designer, set decorator. I mean, you know what's going to happen. They're going to end up hiring people based on their race, based on their gender, based on their sexual preference. You're going to have people lying through their teeth to get jobs in Hollywood. They're just going to say, well, I identify as non-binary today for this job. I'm non-binary. Oh, by the way, if anybody out there in LA wants to hire me, I'm non-binary for the job. I'm non-binary for pay. I mean, it's ridiculous. You completely undermine, the identities you're trying to protect. This is just going to backfire spectacularly. And all the categories are there in that one. Other key roles, at least 6 other crew, team members, technical positions, including production assistants, are from underrepresented racial ethnic groups. I mean, this is like quota system. This is a racial quota system. And this will cure nothing. It will actually make racism worse. It actually encourages racism in Hollywood. You're judging people by their gender, their race, their sexual preference. You're winding the clock back 50 years, you idiots. Oh, but you're so woke and wonderful. Oh. Paid apprenticeships and internships. Same effing thing. Training opportunities. Same thing. Audience development, same thing. You're probably going to have a bunch of unwatchable movies anyway that nobody will want to see. And then what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you come out with some sort of movie that was made, acted, and written by people who were not as qualified because they were hired because of their race, gender, and sexual preference? Where you force a bunch of woke nonsense into the movie that they think is wonderful because everybody on Twitter keeps lauding them day and night. And the movie tanks, and you just pour money into it. You have nobody to blame but yourself. I mean, it's a shame because Hollywood, as hideous as it is, prior to a lot of this woke nonsense, other than the politics, which were always there, but kind of in the back burner years ago, it was a meritocracy in a lot of respects. If you were talented enough, man, you could really make some inroads. If if you just scream talent, and people could see your talent, yeah, you could just rise up. Anybody could. But now with this kind of stuff, you're gonna create a system in which talented people just throw up their hands and leave. They're just gonna throw up their hands and leave Hollywood, and they're gonna build a new Hollywood. So I look forward to the new Hollywood. If anyone's building it, drop me an email. Be happy to write some screenplays, because this woke nonsense, I'm done with. And I look forward to the time period in the not too distant future where the anti-woke stuff takes over. And it'll be interesting to watch Hollywood scramble, try to go back the other way to capitalize on the trend. Oh, Hollywood, you're so Hollywoke.